So I accidentally discovered this recipe for the perfect beef sandwiches when I bought the wrong piece of meat. I was trying to make these sandwiches, which actually look great, and I should probably make them sometime. It calls for chuck eye roast, but when I got to the store, the only word I could remember was eye, so I got eye of round roast. Should be fine, right? No, that's actually on the complete opposite end of the cow. But it turns out eye of round sandwiches are actually really delicious too, especially with the sauce and special ingredients we're using today. We're starting by sprinkling some kosher salt on the meat, and we're gonna let that sit overnight. This is called dry brining, and it helps bring the moisture and flavor out of the meat before you cook. This is ideally overnight, but it could also just be a couple hours, whatever you have time for. Next, let's get the smoker going. Today I'm using my Traeger pellet smoker, which is really great if you're just starting out with barbecue and want the easiest possible path to perfectly cooked meat. It's basically an easy bake oven for men. The pellets will never give you the level of flavor you can achieve with charcoal or wood smokers though, so I consider this machine my lazy smoker, or if I want to test out a recipe with no variables that could potentially arise when you're using something that requires a little more attention. When the meat is done dry brining, let's put our rub on. My go-to rub is the barbecue rub from Malcolm Reed. I put it on pretty much every meat I smoke, and the flavor is just everything you want in barbecue. Now, into the Traeger. Except, oopsie, I forgot my thermometer. We're going to be pulling the meat when it hits a certain temp, so this thermometer is important. I can feed it through this little grommet hole in the smoker and poke it into the meat at the thickest part. This thermometer is also great because it has a little wireless unit that I can take in the house. So let's go back into the house and make the sauce while the meat is smoking. We're going with something called tiger sauce, which is basically just a couple ingredients. Mayonnaise, which, can I say, just looks disgusting despite being delicious, and horseradish. Cut a lemon and squeeze that into the sauce for a delicious zingy flavor that pairs perfectly with our smoky beef. Next, let's make one of my favorite barbecue toppings, pickled onions. When I was a kid, I didn't like onions, and now that I'm grown up, I love them. The moral of the story is if you don't like onions, try growing up. I'm just kidding. After we slice a red onion into super thin slices, make them as thin as possible, we're gonna heat up a few things on the stovetop to pickle them in. You need a half a cup of water, a quarter cup distilled white vinegar, quarter cup apple cider vinegar, a tablespoon of sugar, some salt, and red pepper flakes. Just get everything hot and incorporated, and then you can take it off the stovetop and pour it into a mason jar with the onions. Leave that for just 30 minutes at room temp and you will have something spectacular. Okay, let's check on the meat. It looks like it's not quite ready, and it's important not to rush things, so we'll have to wait just a little bit. It's kind of a gross, blustery day outside, to be honest. Last night, the wind knocked over my wife's plant. But the fact that it's still basically winter and I can cook outside is pretty amazing, as someone that grew up in Ohio, so I'm not complaining. Oh look, while I was reflecting on my life, the meat finished. Now it's time for the fun part. We're gonna use a cast iron pan to sear the outside of the meat to get a nice brown crust. I'm trying to cook this to medium rare on the inside, so I'm keeping an eye on the internal temperature while I'm searing the outside. For this cut of meat, you really don't want to overcook it or it'll get too tough, so rare or medium rare is really the best bet here. Now that we have a really beautiful crust, it's time to rest, and then cut it up for the sandwiches. You're supposed to wait at least 30 minutes for the meat to rest, and normally I would do that, but I'm not gonna lie, I just want some steam when I cut it for the video, so I only waited like 10 minutes. Make sure to cut it super thin, almost transparent. As you can see, I actually did manage to overcook this a little bit. It's not quite as pink as I wanted it to be. I think I should have pulled it out of the smoker just a little bit sooner because it probably browned up a little bit while it was resting or while it was searing. Yeah, that little piece is a goner. It looks amazing though. It's still a little pink and it's super juicy as you can see. Now I'm just gonna assemble my sandwiches on a potato roll bun with our tiger sauce here and our lovely pickled onions. Confirmed the meat is a little chewy because I overcooked it a little bit, but it is still incredibly delicious. I love the simple yet potent flavor combinations in this sandwich. Just 3 things: the tiger sauce, the onions, and the beef. You could totally do this in the oven too. You don't need the smoker. It just adds another layer of flavor. Okay, enough of this video. I'm gonna turn off the camera because I want to destroy this sandwich.